Good day everyone! Welcome to our English 7 class. We hope you are ready and excited for another fun learning experience. Before we begin, we have a simple activity for you. Okay, look carefully at these pictures. Can you guess the story they represent? Did you think of Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, or Snow White? Now imagine watching a movie without a characters, or reading a story without a place where events happen. What if there were no problems to solve? Would the story still be interesting? What do you think? Stories become exciting because they are made up of different parts that work together. These parts help readers understand and enjoy the story. Today, we will explore the different elements of the story. Your facilitators for today's are my name is Isaac Ingles and I am pursuing a Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English. As your facilitator, I am committed to fostering an engaging and student-centered virtual classroom. I support learners by encouraging active participation, meaningful discussion, and open communication. Focus on clarity, patience, and creativity. I strive to make this learning positive and enriching experience for all the students.
Good day, everyone. My name is Shalamit Rosales and I will be your facilitator for today. So, stories are part of our everyday lives. We read stories in books, hear from them from other people, and watch them in movies or television shows. Every story becomes interesting because it's certain important parts called story elements. These elements help us understand how a story is organized and how events connect with one another. Today, we will discuss the five important elements of a story. We have a character, setting, plot, conflict, and resolution. First, we have the character. Characters are the people and animals or imaginary beings who take part in a story. They perform the actions and help move the story forward. Characters are important because they make the story alive and interesting. Readers follow the experiences, emotions, and actions of the story characters while reading the story. These are different types of characters. First, we have the main character or protagonist. The protagonist is most important character in the story. The story usually focuses on this character. The protagonist is often the character who faces challenges or problems. Readers usually support and relate to this character. Example, we have Cinderella. Cinderella is the protagonist because the story revolves around her experiences and struggles. And next, we have the supporting characters. Supporting characters help the main character or add important details to the story. Supporting characters make the story more meaningful because they help develop the events and influence the action of the protagonist. Example, in Cinderella, the fairy godmother and the prince are supporting characters because they help the story develop. And next, we have the settings. Settings. The settings tells us where and when the story takes place. It creates the background and the atmosphere of the story. The settings helps readers imagine the environment of the story. It also affects the moods and events that happen in the story. We have two parts of settings. Place. Place show where the events happen. Example, school, forest, kingdom, house, and beach. The place is important because it gives readers an idea of the surroundings where the characters live or act. Second, we have the time. Time shows when the events happens. We have morning, night, present day, future. Times help readers understand the period or situation in which the story occurs. An example, in Little Red Riding Hood, the forest is part of the settings because many events happen there. Plot? The plot is the sequence of events that happen in a story. It tells us what happened first, next, and last. The plot is important because it organizes the story and keeps the readers interested in what will happen next. And next, we have the parts of the plot. First, we have the beginning or introduction. This part introduces the characters and setting. The beginnings help readers understand who the characters are and where the story happens. First, we have an example. Cinderella lives with her stepmother and stepsisters. Second, we have the rising action. In this part, the events become more exciting and problems begin. The rising action builds suspense and develops conflict of the story. Example, Cinderella wants to attend the royal ball. Third, we have the climax. The climax is the most exciting and the important part of the story. This is the turning point where the biggest problem or challenge happens. The princess, an example, the prince searched for the owner of the glass slipper. And next, we have the falling action. This part shows events after the climax where the tension begins to decrease. The following action explains what happened after the major event of the story. An example, Cinderella tries on a slipper. And next we have the resolution. This is the ending of the story where the problems is solved. The resolution gives closure to the story and shows the final outcome. An example is Cinderella marries the prince and lives happily ever after. The conflict. Conflict is the struggle or problem faced by the characters. Without conflict, stories may become less interesting because challenges create excitement. Conflict is important because it creates tension and gives characters obstacles to overcome. Next, we have type of conflict. First, we have the character versus character. This happens when one character struggles against another character. This type of conflicts usually happens between enemies, rivals, or people with different goals. An example is Cinderella against her stepmother. And next, we have the character versus nature. This happens when a character struggles against natural forces. The character may face storms, earthquake, floods, or other natural disasters. An example, a person trying to survive a strong storm. And next we have character versus self. This happens when a character struggles with the thoughts or feelings. The conflict happens inside the character's mind, such as fear, guilt. An example, a student deciding whether to tell the truth. And next we have the resolution. Resolution is the final part of the story where the conflict is solved and the story ends. Reader usually find out what happens to the characters during the resolution. The resolution is important because it gives closure and satisfaction to the readers after the conflict is solved. An example, the hero defeats the villain, friends forgive each other after an argument, and the lost child finally finds his family. So, to summarize, characters bring stories to life. Settings creates the world of the story. Plots organize the events, and conflict provide challenges. And resolution solve the problems. Together, these elements help writer create meaningful and interesting literary texts. Thank you everyone for listening.
Excellent work, learners! You have reached the final part of our lesson. Today, we learn the important elements of the story. What are those again? Mm-hmm. The characters, the setting, the plot, the conflict, and the resolution. All right, that's are correct. That's all are correct. What was the character again? All right, it is the people, the animals, and the beings of the story. How about the settings? Alright, the settings, it is where and when the story takes place. How about the plot? Yes, it is the sequence of the events in the story. While the conflict, alright, conflict, it is the problem faced by the characters in the story. How about the resolution? Alright, resolution, it is the ending where the problem is being solved. Alright, these elements work together to create an organized and meaningful story. Alright, so now let's have a quick activity. I will give you a short sentence, and the sentence is: a young boy entered to an old house to look for his missing dog. Again, a young boy entered to an old house to look for his missing dog. Your questions or the questions are: first, who is the character? Hmm? All right, it is the young boy. So, what is the setting? Okay, it happened in an old house. So, what could be the conflict? Alright, the conflict is the young boy's dog is missing. So, what could be the resolution? For the resolution, or the resolution would be that the young boy finds his dog to an old house safely. Okay, so we did well our activity. Yes, that's great. So before we end our lesson, let's think about these questions. First, what new idea did we learn today? Mm-hmm. All right, we learned about different elements of the story or story of elements. So, why are the elements of story are important? Mm-hmm. It is important because it makes the story more meaningful and understandable, and also it makes the story organized. So how can elements help you create your own story? And that question is for you to answer, of course, and to ponder. Just keep your answer. But for me, um story elements help me create my own story because story elements helps create a meaningful story because they connect the characters, the settings, different types of elements of the characters. As what I said earlier, it is the setting, the character, the conflict, the plot, the resolution, and whatsoever in a way that develops the ideas and emotions clearly. Remember, understanding story elements help you organize your ideas and compose literary text using appropriate structure. Every story begins with an idea, but story elements help bring those ideas to life. That's why keep reading, keep imagining, and keep creating your own stories because your imaginations can create amazing adventures. Thank you for listening and participating in our lesson for today. This is Arlene Castaneda, one of your facilitator, together with teacher Isaac Ingles and teacher Shalome Rosales. And we hope to see you again in our next learning journey. Goodbye, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.